Hello, Albsterz here, and I thought I would do something a little bit different. I thought, why not try and read out some horror stories? So this story is from CreppyPasta. If you've ever heard of it, I will leave a link in the description down below so you can go and read your own horror stories yourself. The one that we're going to be reading today is I Think I'm Being Followed by a Clown. So it's about 11 minutes of just reading everything as well. So I thought it'd be something we could quite do. Try and set the mood and try and get creeped out and everything like that. So, here we go. I think I'm being followed by a clown. Courtney poked her head out the window of her second floor bedroom. The neighbourhood was still and silent until a haze of mist and a light drizzle. The street lights illuminated the fog into the glowing amber orbs that hovered above the sidewalks. All the houses that lined in the residential road were still dark and still. Courtney paced from one side of the room to the other. She waited impatiently for her parents to settle in and go to bed for the night. It was so close to 11 when she finally heard the heavy footfalls of feet going up the stairs to the master bedroom on the other side of the house. Slipping one leg out of the window, not the window, then the other, Courtney carefully placed the tip of her toe on the bracket that secured the drain pipe to the house. She was mindful of the light drizzle that coated everything, making it difficult to get a good grip on the slippery metal housing. The fit girl shimmered down the thin pipe with expertise and dropped to the ground for the last 6 feet. She pulled out her phone to check the time. She had just had enough time. Courtney calculated after a brisk jog to the subway station, 2 stops, and another fast-paced walk, that she would make it just with enough time. The girl still couldn't believe that she was going through all this trouble for a boy she barely knew. Courtney never did anything like this. She never lied to her parents or snuck out the house in the middle of the night. In fact, it was usually the boy who did this kind of thing for her, not the other way round. But there was something different about him. Wherever he was around her, she felt flustered. A slow burn emerged from her core, making her cheeks glow hot and causing her to stumble over her words. His aroma was nothing but intoxicating to her. She hungered him for him. Yes, that was the most accurate description of her feelings towards the boy. She hungered for him. She was next to him, nothing in the world was wrong. However, alone Courtney would ponder the events and wonder how they got to this point. She was also the careful and cautious type. This behaviour was out of her character for her. She knew virtually nothing about him. She didn't know what school he went to or what he did in his free time. All she knew was his name, Jarius, or Jai, to his friends. She also knew he was supposed to meet him that night at the park bench on the east side of the pig-torn filled park. Yeah, that don't sound right. It gives that a slight miss. Slightly out of breath, she descends to the stairs to the subway platform and waits for the train to arrive. The fluorescent lights flicker off and on erratically, casting a pale greenish blue glow over the walls, separating the inbound and outbound stations were a 4-foot drop where the tracks were laid and disappeared down a locked tunnel. The platform was deserted and deathly quiet, something not unusual at that time of night, but still oddly left the girl with her feelings of emptiness and loneliness. Courtney poked her head over the edge and looked down the tunnel, hoping she would see the light of an approaching train. A soft chuckle filled the empty terminal, starring her. She realised she wasn't alone. From the corner of her eye, she noticed a lone figure sitting in the shadows, not wanting to let the stranger know she saw him. Courtney kept her head turned in the direction of the tunnel. She turned around and took a seat on a bench. Keeping her head down, she tried to get a look at the stranger in the shadows. The man was sitting on a bench, slapped with arms stretched wide, one leg crossed upon his knee, as if he was watching telly at home. TV couldn't help. Courtney couldn't help but notice the clothes he was wearing. They seemed excessively baggy to the point of ridiculousness. The same could have been said for his feet were abnormally large for an average person. Regardless of what the weirdo was wearing, she almost sure he was watching her intently from across the way. For the moment he did not move a muscle, and his stare remained unbroken. Slowly his head cocked to the side, and his hands slowly rose. Swaying from left to right, he waved hello to the frightened girl. A gust of wind blew from the incoming train, pushing the stagnant air from within the tunnel. The faint whine grew louder as it approached. Courtney stood still as she ignored the stranger man, beaconing his greetings from across the way. The train flew before the slowing to a stop. Flashes of lights escaped through the train, windows speeding by. From the far side of the platform, Courtney caught a quick glimpse of the man, now approaching the edge of his platform on the outbound side of the subway. Over the squeaks of the brakes grinding the massive machine to the stop. She thought she heard someone laugh under its rumble and roar. Ha ha ha. The train finally came to a halt, and Courtney turned her gaze away from the stranger. She quickly boarded the empty train and sat with her back towards her new admirer. She didn't get a decent look at him, but the girl remained unsettled at what she saw, or what she thought she saw. Courtney's rational side was hard at work, convincing herself she hadn't seen glimpses of the pasty white skin, the thick blue eyeliner, or the crimson red hair and nose. Above all else, it was its stare that the girl wanted to forget. The face was burnt into her memory, and no amount of denial would erase it from her mind. Engraved on the surface was a forced expression of bashfulness and innocence. However, to Courtney, the appearance it cast was fake, artificial, most likely because the genuine feeling was so foreign and alien to it. It was the face of a predator, a disarming and playful demand, meant to trick and deceive its young and unexpectedly prey. It was a mask that conveyed a friendly look with a single intent and desire to lure away anyone and all who were too naive or unaware that such evil existed in the world. Courtney shivered at the thought of the man roaming at night in the empty train stations. He could have easily been on her side of the platform, waving only a few feet away. As the train begins to pull away, she slowly turns around to see an empty platform through the flickering lights. Rows of empty seats, benches soon vanishes into the distance as the train accelerates a speed away. Courtney sat alone on the train, still feeling unnerved. The loud clanks and bangs of the train's wheels against the tracks rocked her back and forth, preventing her from relaxing. Her mind kept returning to that empty platform across the way, and the weird man slouched on the bench in the shadows. Courtney still refused to believe what she'd seen in them brief flashes of light. What would a man dressed up as a clown be doing in a subway station in the middle of the night? Like everyone else, she heard of a clown sightings. Everyone at school were talking about it. It seemed like everyone knew someone who'd experienced a clown encounter. They told stories of near misses or chillings, nerve-rattling chases along deserted hiking paths. Sometimes they just stare at you. They just stared. What time to spare, the train slowed at Courtney's stop. She waited impatiently for the doors to slide open. A bing rang over the intercom and a monotone voice announced the arrival. The train slowed. It took the sweet time before finally coming to a stop. The doors slide open. Courtney froze in place. As hard as she tried, she couldn't deny what her eyes were showing her. Tied to a bench on the far side of the deserted terminal was a large crimson balloon. No, get out of there. It floated nonchalantly in the air as it belonged there. Printed on its surface was big black letters that spelled "Bad girl." No, no. Courtney raced up the stairs, furthest from the particular balloon. The past events were too strange for her to ignore. Was it a message? Was it a warning? Was someone messing with her? Was someone after her? Courtney walked briskly along the deserted streets, mindful of her surroundings. She would frequently check over her shoulder at the sounds of the second set of footsteps she imagined she heard from behind. She decided to cut through a 51st and a half street and cut across Cross Grove to get to the park. Courtney stared down the long dark alleyway, cursed herself for the current predicament. I think it was the type of alleyway seen in every goddamn horror movie. Oh, why did they always come to me? Why? The one where they would find the goddamn body of the goddamn girl who'd snuck out of her house in the middle of the night. Courtney started walking down the alley. On the other side was the entrance to the park where Jai agreed to meet her. She tried to avoid the puddles collecting as most the cracked and broken a spat. A whoosh and a fluttering from above startled her. She looked up to only see the buildings vanish into the night sky. The drizzling had stopped, but the moisture hung thick in the air, and the streetlights gave her the mist an amber glow to its hue. Courtney held her breath and listened intently to the silence. She stood completely still until she heard a faint tip-tap-tip splash from behind. She turned to see the distant shape of the man standing in the entryway of the alley. He stood tall, rigid and still, staring at the lone girl. Oh, hell no! Courtney ran the remainder of the way into the park. She stopped to catch her breath and took in her surroundings. Her situation hadn't improved very much. She was alone in the middle of the night. In a deserted park, a faint light illuminated the path and branches of trees stretched up towards the night sky. She continued to follow towards her destination. Every once in a while, the branches from above would rustle, as if something light and graceful was leaping from one tree limb to the next. Sometimes it was too close. She could feel the air swoop by and move the hairs next to her ears. Courtney had reached the end of her rope. She'd had enough and stomped her feet and yelled, "Listen, asshole, I've had enough. My friend isn't just over there. And if you don't take off before I reach him, you're going to get an ass kicking you won't soon forget." Okay, it's a bit whew. Courtney turned on her heels, mumbling under her voice, "Asshole," as she marched towards the lone bench by the creek on the far side of the park. It wasn't too long before she heard voices from around the bend. There were hoops and hollers from the young folks seemingly having a good time, under the orange and yellow glow of the street park lights. She saw 4 figures underneath its illumination. One stood with his arms crossed, staring off into the distance. The other 3 jumped off and on the park bench and table, swinging from the light post, apparently entering each side of the dreary night. As Courtney drew closer to the bench, the lone figure uncrossed his arms and looked up with a genuine delight. He said, "Babe, you made it. I was beginning to worry you wouldn't show up." He took the girl and embraced her in her arms. He buried his face in her hair and inhaled deeply. "I've missed you so much." Courtney took in the embrace and flooded the infatuation and emotions made her light-headed and flustered. She lifted her eyes and saw the silhouette of the 3 strangers watching her speculate intently. They slowly drew closer with their heads slightly cocked to the side. The odd behaviour was enough to clear her head momentarily. She pulled away from Jared and asked, "Who are they?" Jared gestured in their direction, dismissing them, and said, "Oh, them? They're nobody. They're family. Don't mind them." Courtney looked at the three figures, then back to Jared, and said, "I thought you said it would just be me and you." The taller of the three strangers stepped towards and called out, "Jaras!" He spoke in a Jaras language that Courtney could not identify. Jared responded in the same language, and the four laughed in unison. "Ha ha ha, this does sound good." Courtney pulled away and said, "This is not what I came all the way out for." "Oh, do you know what I went through to get here? I had to climb out my house and risk my life. Then I had to wait in an empty subway all by myself with some creepy making goo-goo eyes from the other side. I'm wet, I'm tired, and my hair is a mess. So excuse me if I'm a little pissed when I show up and you're here chilling out with some Siberian stooges over there." Courtney turned to leave when she felt the firm grip on her arm pull back Jared's embrace. He whispered in to her ear, "I'm terribly sorry, my little palette. The truth of the matter is we all have to endure these mild inconveniences from time to time. Perhaps that is a lesson I should teach you this very night." He laughed. Ha ha ha. The flood of emotions and infatuation rushed over Courtney once again. She felt the heartburn in her cheeks and build in her chest. His scent stirred her feelings and threatened to overcome all rational thinking and any sense of self-preparation. Then for one brief second, the spell was broken. It was confusion that cleared her mind and thoughts. It was confusion from one word spoken to her. She turned to Jairus in the eyes and asked, "What do you call me?" Jared smiled and his eyes clouded into blood-red orbs with black, splitting pupils. The flesh from his face fell away in clumps, revealing a pale and leathery skin. Hooked claws rose from each side of his head under just his ears. Loud ripping emerged from the bony appendages, tearing free from his back, revealing a large translucent wings. Oh, he opened his mouth wide and a long curved fang broke through the surface, tearing through the gums. He spoke with a voice gurgling saliva with phlegm. "My dear, dear, precious little palate. Yes, that's what you are. You look so tasty. I can't wait to eat you up." Courtney screamed as the pointed fangs lowered and pierced the surface of her skin. She closed her eyes, then gritted her teeth as the pain grew. Jared's bite and Courtney's scream were suddenly interrupted by the loud honking of a bicycle horn. "Honk, honk, hello!" Confusion fell over both the predator and prey's face. Each looked each other and asked, "Was that you?" They looked up to see the shape of a man standing before them. He was tall and fit. The baggy clothes he wore were dingy white and yellow ruffles on the cuffs and his feet. His red hair was puffy and came to sharp points on each side of the head. His face was a pasty white with blue paint streaked across his cheeks. The tip of his nose was crimson red and his eyes were piercing blue. His large hand was cocked back in a fungant glove fist. The swift and mighty blow landed precisely in the center of Jairus' face. The punch knocked the creature off its feet and sent Courtney spiraling to the ground. From out the darkness, the two clowns flipped into view on the left and right side of their taller companions, each brain-dished silver daggers in their hands. A petite female clown rushed to Courtney's side and gestured with her hands to stay put. She guarded the girl with a long twirling staff capped with sharp silver tips. Courtney watched in amazement as the four clowns engaged the four creatures, displaying incredible acts of acrobatics and skilled tactics of seasoned warriors. She gasped in surprise as the tall clowns smashed the heads of the attacking monsters with oversized mallets, causing the creature's body to burst into flames. The clowns moved as one, coordinating their attacks and anticipations each other's moves to overcome and outmaneuver the physical superior beasts. Jared flew and perched up on a low-hanging tree branch, mischievously glaring down as one after another as its brothers fell to the skills of their enemy. It scanned the scene and smiled when it saw Courtney cowering on the ground and decided that tonight should not be a total loss. It leapt down, landing beside her, and took off her wet hair. With a sudden whoosh, it saw its hand separate from its wrists. The glint of a silver boomerang sparkles as it returned to the palm of the smaller female clown. Courtney stumbled backwards, slamming hard into a tree as the darkness unconsciously slowly bled over her vision. She saw the four figures surrounding the nightmare shape. They stabbed at the creature until it burst into flames and Courtney saw no more. Courtney opened her eyes. Her blurry vision was slow to clear, but eventually it did. As soon as she realised she was back in her room, of course, she was not fooled. She was neither stupid nor going crazy. No, it had not been a dream. She still felt the chill from the damp clothes she wore. She still felt the gigantic lump in the back of her head from where she collided with the tree. She could still feel the sting from the two punctured marks along the side of her neck. Most importantly, she could see the giant crimson balloon bobbling in the air outside her bedroom window, with the big black letters spelled "Good Girl." And credit is to Derek Hawkey. So that is it. That is the story. That's crazy. Oh, that actually gave me the chills. That really did. So I really do hope. So that was, I think I'm being followed by a clown. I hope you guys did really enjoy that, and let me know if you want to see a little bit more. Please do let me know in the comments. I'm sorry for some of my reading. I'm not the best when it comes to reading, but hopefully in the future, as we may progress with this series, I may get a little bit better at reading. So I hope you all did enjoy this video. If you did, then leave a like and a comment down below. Boom, 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 boom. So guys, thanks all around, and I'll catch you in my next video. Bye.